Oh, if you've ever grown tomatoes, you know the feeling. The heartbreak. You've watched them grow, they're getting red and perfect, and then you see it. That awful, dark, sunken patch on the bottom. It's blossom end rot, and it is just one of the most frustrating things in a garden. But what if I told you that the #1 fix you see all over the internet is actually based on a complete myth?
Okay, I know, it's a dramatic question, but seriously, every single spring, millions of us gardeners follow the exact same advice we see online, thinking we're doing the right thing for our plants. But in reality, we might be wasting our time on a so-called solution that does absolutely nothing, while the real problem just keeps on going.
So, what are we actually looking at here? Well, that leathery black spot, it isn't a fungus, it's not a bacteria. You can't just spray it away with a fungicide. It's what's called a physiological disorder, which is just a fancy way of saying something is going wrong inside the plant itself. The cells in that part of the fruit are literally dying, they're collapsing, and that's why they turn dark. And that, of course, brings us to the most famous hack of all time. I am sure you've seen it. You save your eggshells from breakfast, you crush them up, and you toss a handful right into the planting hole. It's everywhere, in magazines, on blogs, all over social media. It's pretty much become gardening gospel. And to be honest, the logic seems totally solid, doesn't it? We're told that blossom end rot is a calcium problem. We know for a fact that eggshells are almost pure calcium, so it seems obvious. You add the calcium, you fix the problem. It's simple, it feels right, and it is almost completely wrong. Okay, so let's really dive into this, because the science behind why this fails is genuinely fascinating. It really breaks down into two main parts: the problem with the shells themselves and the problem with what we think about our soil. So first up, the eggshells. When you just crush them by hand, you're left with some pretty big pieces, right? Well, those pieces are made of calcium carbonate, which is incredibly tough stuff. It doesn't dissolve easily at all. In fact, research shows it takes, get this, 1 to 3 years for those shells to decompose enough to release any of that calcium for the plant. Your entire tomato season is, 4 or 5 months? The math just doesn't add up. And this just perfectly illustrates the point. Gardeners and scientists have said it time and time again. You can go back to that same planting hole months later, dig around, and you'll find those eggshell bits looking exactly the same as the day you put them in. They literally haven't done a thing. But here's the kicker, the second point, which is even more important. The entire myth is built on the idea that our garden soil is missing calcium. But the reality, which has been confirmed by countless university soil tests, is that a true calcium deficiency in garden soil is incredibly rare. Your soil almost certainly has plenty of calcium in it already, and you just can't force a plant to soak up more of a nutrient by dumping more of it at its feet. So if the soil has plenty of calcium, then what's the deal? Well, the problem isn't a lack of calcium in the ground. It's a failure to transport the calcium that's already there up into the plant. It's a delivery problem, not a supply problem. To really get this, we need to look at the plant's internal plumbing. It's called the xylem. Just think of it like a highway system of tiny little pipes that pull water and all the dissolved nutrients up from the roots to the rest of the plant. And calcium? It's just a passive passenger on this highway. It can only go where the water is flowing.
And here is the absolutely crucial detail. A plant's leaves are constantly breathing out water vapor. This creates a really powerful pull, kind of like a straw, that sucks a steady stream of water and calcium right up to them. But the fruit, with its waxy skin, doesn't do that. So the leaves get first dibs on all the water and calcium, and the poor fruit, especially the very end of the fruit, is last in line and gets whatever is left over.
So here it is, the main point. When the plant gets thirsty, that whole flow of water slows down or just stops completely. And when the water stops moving, guess what? The calcium delivery stops too. That cycle of the soil going bone dry and then getting flooded with water, it creates a massive traffic jam on the calcium highway. The fruit tries to grow, but the calcium it needs to build strong cells just can't get there in time. And a couple of really common gardening habits can make this traffic jam even worse. If you hit your plants with too much high nitrogen fertilizer, you get a huge explosion of new leaves, and all those new leaves demand even more water, basically stealing it from the fruit. Also, if you're not careful when you're weeding and you damage the roots, you're crippling the plant's ability to even absorb water in the first place. Okay, so if eggshells are a total myth, what actually works? The real solution isn't some secret product or garden hack. It's all about creating stability for the plant so that calcium highway never ever has to shut down. And honestly, this is all it really comes down to. First, water consistently. The goal is to keep the soil evenly moist, never letting it swing from desert dry to soaking wet. Second, mulch is your best friend. A thick 2 to 3 inch layer of straw or wood chips acts like a sponge, holding that moisture in the soil. Then, just go easy on the fertilizer and be gentle around the roots. That's it. It really is that simple.
And you know what? Here's the best news of all. Blossom end rot is way more common on the very first fruits of the season. And you know why? It's because the plant is young and its root system isn't fully developed yet. As the season goes on and those roots spread out, the plant gets much better at taking up water consistently. And the problem? It often just disappears all by itself.
So, if that's the case, why does everyone still swear by eggshells? Well, it's a classic case of what we call confirmation bias. A gardener who takes the time to carefully crush and add eggshells is probably also a very attentive gardener who's watering more consistently. The watering is what's fixing the problem, but the eggshells get all the credit. Plus, since the problem often fixes itself anyway, whatever cure you happen to try last is going to look like it worked perfectly. So it really all comes down to this. You don't need to buy special calcium sprays, and you definitely don't need to religiously save your eggshells. The real power to stop blossom end rot? Well, it's been in your hands this whole time. The solution was never buried in the soil. It was flowing right through your garden hose.